well that he wins.
I was afraid there was going to be a point that I pushed you too far, and I feel that we have just gotten up to that point. But we really appreciate how playful you have been on the lighter note with all of that, and it was just great. I mean, it was just a great moment to watch. You know that obviously Brad Pitt is a fan of yours and all of your information as well.
Yeah. Okay. Go towel yourself off, Allison, will you? How embarrassing. Disgusting. In the context, 2020, when people are not being allowed to see their loved ones in hospitals and hospices, when kids are committing suicide because they're isolated and despondent. I mean, these people. The new Tony Fauci, I mean, not in that sense, but took over the position and has brought a actual level of sobriety to it. Dr. Jay Bhattacharya, head of NIH now, had to spar with Marge. We have so much to get to. Senator, we have just so much to get to. We can't allow you to answer questions. Great debate moderator she was, if you'll recall, in 2024. And she does the same routine every Sunday. These people are just intolerable, really. But Dr. J did a good job of setting Marge straight, large Marge straight, including on the importance of, yes, going back to 2020. Yes, talking about everything with respect to vaccine schedules and public health in the context of what we did in 2020 so that we do it exactly the opposite of the way that Tony Fauci and the crew did it.
Parents trust that they can go vaccinate their kids when their doctor tells them to do so for them to go back to school.
I think that the parents, for most kids, especially for the measles vaccines, the DTP, all the standard childhood vaccines, it's very important that parents vaccinate their kids. As far as can they feel confident sending back to schools, I just to push back some, it was a tremendous mistake to cause parents to fear about sending their kids to school during the COVID pandemic. The kids were better off in school. We shouldn't be scaring public.
I'm talking about what people do now. It's August, about to be September.
Yeah, but Margaret,
I'm not talking about 2020. I'm talking about 2026.
We're talking about the why people have
from the federal government
just so we're
and
clear.
the top health official.
If you want clarity, let me give you some clarity.
Please.
The reason why you have this problem of public trust is because what happened in 2020 has not yet been addressed.
Can these parents trust you? And the recommendation that they should get their kids vaccinated.
The parents should trust me. I'm giving my recommendation. I've vaccinated my kids. I don't think that I think if you want to protect your kids from these sort of parental diseases, yes, you should vaccinate your kids. But it is even more important that these kids go to school. Mm-hmm. That in no way, shape, or form should this show or any other show like it perpetuate the idea that sending their kids to school is worse because there's going to be some health risk there, when it's just not true, right? If you want to protect your kids from those preventable diseases, vaccinate your kids. I've been very, very clear about that. But it is a mistake, and it contributes to the lack of public trust if you sort of fearmonger around, if you send your kids to school, well, you might be around unvaccinated kids. That's a tremendous mistake, right? If you vaccinate your kids, you can protect your kids from those risks, whatever they are. In any case, it's better to send the kids to school because that's how you keep kids healthy.
Yes. We want to send our kids to school.
But now addressing what happened in 2020 is part of that. If you want to say why there's this loss of public trust, you have to really wrap your arms around that.
Yeah, I'm glad he stuck to it and went back to it time and again. You're not getting away with it. You're one of the fearmongers. He was too polite to say it. For more on this and other matters, pleased to be joined by Joseph Moreno, former federal prosecutor with the Department of Justice and the National Security Division, former staff member with the FBI's 9/11 Review Commission, and a U.S. Army combat veteran. Joseph Moreno, thanks for joining us again. Appreciate it.
Dan, it's been a while. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, good to have you back. So the case to hold Tony Fauci in contempt. I mean, we've got some recent precedents with Bannon and Navarro, and the Supreme Court vacated the Bannon conviction, and Navarro's conviction is still pending appeal, maybe to the Supreme Court. So is it worthwhile, in your view, for the Department of Justice to take this criminal referral from the Senate Homeland Security Committee and run with it?
See, Dan, I think you used the word worthwhile, and I think that's a good word, because I think from the perspective of a U.S. citizen, of a good governance guy who just wants to know what happened, I was mortified, right, when I see Dr. Fauci take the fifth 100 times or so and not answer a single question before the Senate Homeland Security Committee. As a defense lawyer, though, right, if he were my client, and there were people that were calling for him to be investigated and prosecuted at the federal and state level, the sort of careful approach would be don't say anything. Mm-hmm. And so then the Justice Department will have to think about, did he have a legitimate Fifth Amendment right to assert there? There's arguments on both sides, right? Because, of course, he had the pardon from President Biden, right, his auto pen pardon. So one would say, well, you have nothing to worry about as long as you tell the truth. Right? We can't second guess anything you did or said or wrote back before 2025. On the flip side, Fauci would say, well, how can I be sure you're going to honor that pardon and not try to railroad me anyway? So you would go down this whole rabbit hole of whether or not there was a constitutional issue about the Fifth Amendment. It would take years to work out. The guy's 85 years old. So when it comes down to it, is there a strong case of holding him in contempt? Yes. Have the Democrats on the flip side held conservatives in contempt in recent years? Yes, they have. They broke precedent, right? First prosecutions in 50 years of Bannon and Navarro for contempt of Congress. But is it really worth it? Is it really worth trying to prosecute this 85-year-old guy? I think personally it's more worthwhile to try to get the information from him that he has. And if that means immunity to get it, that's probably the way I would go, much as it would pain me to do so.
Mm. And part of it is we don't know. There's some 34,000 messages recovered from his phone, and we don't have the full accounting of that yet. So, that could be instructive as well. The threat at the state level, these investigations running concurrently, allegedly in several states, perhaps most notably in Florida. I mean, I hear that, and I understand that the federal pardon doesn't cover state-level charges, but I also have a hard time figuring out what sort of colorable case could be cobbled together to charge Fauci at the state level in Florida or any other state. I mean, first on jurisdictional issues, and then secondly, just in the substance of the case you could make against him under a particular state statute. Do you see something that I'm not seeing?
I mean, look, a clever prosecutor can figure out how to bring a case against anybody, right? It might not hold up when it gets to court, but you can find all kinds of ways of charging people. So they could probably create some kind of obstruction or a false statement that Fauci made that allegedly affected state policy or something. It would not be easy. Mm-hmm. So again, I get the desire to investigate and get information. But when it comes time to actually going through the mechanics of a prosecution, there would be challenges at the federal level. At the state level, it would be a real uphill battle.
The other matters, some revealed last week that you would have expertise in addressing. The 2020 election may not have been the most safe and secure election in the history of our country, we find out. After it was revealed that there were some 600,000 plus election records in Maricopa County, Arizona, key swing state, that were compromised. Now, there's no allegation that there was ballot manipulation or vote total manipulation, but nonetheless, there was an understanding that there was a vulnerability there, and it could have been exploited in a fraudulent way. And there was a whistleblower. There was somebody who admitted that he had compromised the system, and the documents that were declassified. No one under the Biden regime was interested, or if they were interested, could find a federal prosecutor who was interested in pursuing this case. Meanwhile, they're all publicly saying, safe, including Chris Krebs, cybersecurity, safest and most secure election in history, nothing there. Anybody who suggests that there are vulnerabilities in the system is a crank, is a election denier, so on and so forth. It seems like that needs a more fulsome explanation and accounting for?
Yeah, I think that there's two things that really just kind of I have a hard time getting over. One is the pure numbers, right? 15 million new voters popped up in 2020, more than had voted in 2016. Fast forward to 2024, those 15 million drop off. How did we possibly spike by 15 million new voters in 2020 in the midst of a pandemic? Those numbers have always bothered me. Where did all these voters come from, and where did they drop off? So that's one thing. The other thing
and by the way, just for clarity, you mean voters on the rolls, not ballots cast, but on the rolls.
Yes.
Right.
Yes,
that's
yes.
A key distinction. Go ahead.
And sorry. And then the other one is, why does one side of our political spectrum, and we know who it is, fight so hard against what I think most of us would consider very, very basic security measures, like showing an ID when you vote, right? Having to prove your citizenship when you register or change states. Why would one side of the spectrum fight so hard against these most basic things unless they felt they were benefiting from the lack of these safeguards? And so I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I'm not saying there's some deep, dark conspiracies that I can't prove, because I don't like saying things like that. But when I see these wacky number changes, and when I see these politicians just go to the mat refusing to consider the most basic safeguards of one of the most important things that we do as citizens in this country, is to vote for federal offices every 2 years. Why would that be the case unless they had something to hide?
Well, right. And the Department of Justice passing on a case that looks like a violation of federal election law, and the cybersecurity point person going on 60 Minutes and saying things that he knew, we now know, were untrue. Like you can still say it's a safe and secure election, but it's not without vulnerabilities. And let me give you an example. This vulnerability, that's full disclosure. You can say, okay, so we identified this vulnerability, we investigated it, we know it's a problem, something that's going to have to be addressed on a go-forward basis. But I'm here to say it didn't change the outcome in the state of Arizona, and so on and so forth. Fine, but when you don't disclose it, you create all the more suspicion, legitimate suspicion.
Yeah, and I think the most simple way to improve people's confidence in our election system is to shine a spotlight on these concerns. And even if it doesn't go anywhere, right, look into it. If it doesn't turn up anything, fine, tell people. But to kind of hide it, to ignore it, to not prosecute it, not investigate it, again, it undermines people's trust and people's eagerness and participate in our political process if they don't feel that their vote is worth something.
Todd Blanche finally got through as the newly minted Attorney General. What is your view of that selection and the job that he'll do?
So full disclosure, I've known Todd for about 10 years. We were law partners together. We've been friends for the last decade. So I've got the benefit of knowing him personally. So I've been up front. I've practiced law with him. I've seen him in court. He's a very skilled litigator, and he's a very good, solid guy. So I come with that bias. That said, even if I didn't, though, I think it would be hard to debate that he's not qualified. Mm-hmm. Right? He's 10 years in the Southern District of New York, which is one of the most elite U.S. attorney's offices in the country. He served as now deputy and then acting attorney general, so no one knows how to do the job of attorney general than having had served as deputy, because the deputy at the DOJ is a very, very hands-on job, as you know, Dan, right? Every U.S. attorney, every assistant attorney general, all Senate confirmed, all roll up under the deputy attorney general, who really runs things day to day. Not a ceremonial role. It's a very hands-on role. And Todd has had that job for the past year. So he knows the system. He knows how the court systems work. He knows how to pick losers and winners in terms of cases. He knows how to identify solid prosecutors and managers. So I think he'll do a great job. And I understand that people go to the sort of first argument that, well, he was President Trump's lawyer in a prior life, right? So how can he then be objective? I see it a little differently. I mean, the president should have an attorney general that he can trust. And President Trump in particular was really burned by a lot of Washington insiders, particularly in his first term, right? So I can understand he wants someone that he can trust. And basic legal ethics would prevent Todd from continuing to represent the president on anything he knows was involved in personally, so he had to recuse himself. And I have no doubt that he will do that. And I have no doubt that Congress, particularly if it's controlled by Democrats, will make sure he does that. But beyond that, I completely understand why the president wants someone he knows he can rely on. And I think Todd's a great selection in that respect.
Yeah. The left likes to, forget on again, off again that the attorney general is part of the executive branch. They're not going to be unknown quantities regardless of who the president is, as we've seen over the course of American history. But they're very naive when it comes to choices that are not their own. Joseph Moreno, former federal prosecutor with the Department of Justice and the National Security Division, former staff member with the FBI's 9/11 Review Commission, and a U.S. Army combat veteran. Joseph Moreno, thank you as always. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Dan. Have a great week.
You too. And he joined us in the alphawealthgroup.com answer line. Coming up at 7:07, we will seamlessly transition to more geopolitics with Stephen Bucci, our weekly conversation. We'll talk about the Gaza peace plan that the Israelis have rejected so far, and the latest public ruminations of the Iranians with respect to reopening the strait, even temporarily. Stephen Bucci from the Heritage Foundation joins us at 7:07. Stephen Bucci. It is now 7 o'clock on AM 560 WIND Chicago.
That he's taking a low-key approach as talks continue to get shipping flowing fully through the Strait of Hormuz after all of Iran's attacks on ships.
The Iranian government issued a new list of demands for the United States. Tehran says free passage won't be reinstated until the U.S. corrects its behavior. It wants the blockade of Iranian ports lifted, the American military withdrawn, and compensation for war damage. Meanwhile, Israel's prime ministers rejected a 15-point Board of Peace plan for Gaza. Benjamin Netanyahu says his troops won't withdraw until Hamas is completely disarmed.
That's Fox's Jonathan Savage. Oil prices are up more than one. .701 on AM 560, The Answer. Good morning, everyone. I'm Mike Scott in the QC Kinetics newsroom. Humid with a potential downpour late in the morning around 11:30. Then some powerful storms could hit the area again in the afternoon with a high of 84. And cleanup continues around the Chicago area after late-night storms pounded much of the area with rain and high winds. National Weather Service did confirm a tornado touchdown in LaSalle County. Community members gathered at a restaurant Sunday in Bridgeport calling for federal help and additional resources to address what they see as a surge in crime and gun violence across the city of Chicago.
I'm not counting on the politicians to fix this. I'm not waiting for the police to do anything. We, the people, have to come together and figure out a different way of when we get upset with one another.
The gathering came in the wake of multiple shootings in the city over the weekend. Several were injured. At least 4 were killed. Charges pending following a deadly hit-and-run crash on Chicago's north side. The victim struck by a vehicle late Saturday night in the 1400 block of West Irving Park Road. The driver also slammed into multiple other vehicles in the 4000 block of North Ashland Avenue. A 1-year-old boy is among 3 hurt after a fire broke out on Chicago's south side late Saturday night in a building near 68th and Merrill, and a person has died, another forced to jump out of a second-story window after a house fire in Lake Forest on Sunday morning. Chicago sports, White Sox win the series with Cleveland, extend their lead in the AL Central with a 5-3 win. Cubs 10-2 winners over the Royals. They'll visit Washington tomorrow night. The news, a service of the AM 560 store. T-shirts, hoodies, and more when you go to 560theanswer.com/store. We'll have a check of traffic and weather coming up next on AM 560.
Have you been watching gold and silver lately? Hard to ignore. Back in January of 2025, silver was under $30 an ounce, and now it's more than doubled. Again, not bad, right? Some experts say this bull market is just getting started. Others say it's a good time to take some money off the table. Either way, whether you're buying or selling, Fox Valley Coins in Naperville is the place to go. They stock large quantities of all the major bullion coins and bars. And here's what sets them apart. Unlike places that only pay melt value, Fox Valley Coins pays more for high-grade coins and scarcer dates. That's real money left in your pocket. They also buy scrap sterling flatware, jewelry, silver-plated items, and old proof sets. And they specialize in U.S. and foreign collector and investment coins and currency, both buying and selling. Fox Valley Coins, one light north of I-88 on Route 59 at Ferry Road in Naperville. Family-owned with integrity since 1981.
Your kitchen's outdated. Your bathroom feels cramped. Every day you wait, prices go up. And you keep living in a space that doesn't work. At Forever Remodeling, one team handles everything. Design, planning, and installation, start to finish. We show you your new space in 3D before we ever break ground. No surprises. With flexible financing options, the home you want is closer than you think. Visit foreverremodeling.com. That's the number 4everremodeling.com to schedule your personalized in-home design consultation.
Welcome back to Ask Hassellus.
This is the Sheriff's Office. We have a report of missing employees at Hassellus Mattress.
Yes, Hassellus Mattress showrooms are employee-free.
You're confessing?
That's how we keep our prices way low. And through Monday, trade in your old mattress and take $248 off a queen and $348 off a king.
Sounds suspicious.
Free next day delivery, too.
Dispatch, I need a police escort for a Hassellus Mattress delivery truck to my house.
Find an employee-free showroom near you at hassellus.com.
In a recent survey of 123,000 wireless customers, Pure Talk was the only wireless company to receive 5 stars in every category: coverage, support, value, and data. What else do you need to know? Switch to Pure Talk today and get any plan, including their top shelf unlimited data plan, for just $15 a month for your first 3 months. No contract, no commitment. Dial pound 250, say micro, and let Pure Talk's U.S. customer service team help you make the switch.
A small business affirmation from Progressive. Bakery owners, you will be loved today. Every pastry will be flaky. Your cake will make a child's day. Your delivery van won't get sideswiped by a distracted garbage truck driver. But if so, breathe easy, knowing you'll get back to business quickly with Progressive protecting your commercial auto. See if you can save in as little as 8 minutes at progressivecommercial.com.
Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates.
Hey, did you ever track down that missing warehouse key?
I forgot all about it.
You forgot? You said that guy was furious when you had to let him go.
That doesn't matter anymore. Goldilocks set us up with new managed access control. We're keyless now. Everyone has a card or fob. Even their phone works.
Huh. You don't have to worry about people copying keys either.
Yeah, never again. Goldilocks allows me to handle everything from my phone or laptop. I can see who came into the building, when they left, restrict their access at night. I can grant temporary access to visitors, too. It takes 30 seconds to add or remove someone.
That sounds a lot safer and simpler.
Stop guessing who has access to your building. Set up access controls today by calling Goldilocks at 708-889-5600. Again, that's 708-889-5600. Or visit GoldilocksInc.com. Goldilocks. Security under your control.
.707 Team Hochberg Traffic Center time. We're looking at the Kennedy right now. Just a reminder, you recall last week we had that inbound off-ramp to Lawrence Avenue entirely shut down when they had a massive retaining wall collapse. It's been repaired. They've opened one lane of that ramp for the morning commute. Stop and go on the Kennedy outbound Montrose to Sayre. Tri-State accident, left lane blocked southbound at 31st. I-88, the Reagan, an accident westbound at the Veterans Memorial Toll. Chicago's Morning Answer continues next. Now a check of your morning forecast in our Air Ride Heating and Cooling Weather Center with Jason Caterina. We've given Jason the morning off. Humid with a downpour late in the morning, followed by heavy thunderstorms, he would say. Storms can bring flash flooding, damaging winds. Watch out this afternoon with a high of 84. Humid, heavy storms, and a low of 69 overnight.
Get the latest weather, traffic, and news updates online at 560theanswer.com.
This hourly segment is brought to you by Goldilocks, offering 24/7 security solutions for homes and businesses. Call them today at 708-889-5600.
Now, from The Signature, a division of Esquire Bank Studios. This is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft on AM 560. The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan Proft here. So this is what the Iranian Foreign Minister Araghchi had to say over the weekend, as reported and translated by Fox News.
We have been discussing the temporary route, and we are very close to reaching a conclusion. Work is being carried out based on the maps of this route. Prepared by the armed forces, negotiations have taken place between the navies of the two countries, and the details are being finalized. I believe we will be able to conclude these negotiations very soon.
You'll pardon my lack of enthusiasm. Iran also demanded the release of foreign Iranian assets, an end to U.S. military's presence, really, in the Strait, and also cash and prizes to rebuild. So, more or less, we're on the same hamster wheel we've been on, it seems to me, but we'll get Stephen Bucci's perspective on that momentarily. One piece I wanted to reference as well to inform our conversation, Brian Kennedy writing in The American Mind in defense of Trump's strategy here, mostly, but he also has some suggestions to both of the supporters as well as skeptics. On expectations, the American people should not expect a surrender ceremony on the deck of a battleship. Wars against regimes like the one in Iran don't end cleanly. They end when the enemy is denied the means of destroying you and knows that any attempt to rebuild those means will bring their destruction. That's the standard by which President Trump's conduct of this war should be judged, not the false choice between a forever war and a pretended peace. Yes, and Brian Kennedy gets to the point of that's exactly the message that President Trump and his representatives should be sending to the American public, doing a little bit more explaining and a little bit less of sort of having to bat back the forever war accusations and doing so just sort of categorically. And this hamster wheel I just described of we're on the cusp of. He also goes on, does Kennedy, to those who support the president but not this war, let me ask a question in a spirit of friendship. How long did we imagine it would be before something had to be done about Iran? The choice before us was never between this war and no war. It was between war now on our terms against a regime not yet armed with nuclear weapons, and war later on their terms, quite possibly announced by the destruction of an American city. And he goes on to say, as I sort of referenced, President Trump, knowing well the American people's reluctance to go to war, has never fully explained the Iranian nuclear threat to them. Now would be a good time to do so. A people who know the stakes will see the war through to its conclusion. A people kept in the dark will demand it end before its object is achieved and hand the mullahs the only victory available to them. Put simply, the war ends when the nuclear threat from Iran ends and when the regime in Tehran understands that it is suicidal to attack the United States. Until the Golden Dome is complete, President Trump must deny our permanent enemy the permanent object of its ambition. That is the task before us, and one we must achieve sooner rather than later. joining us now for a weekly chat about these types of matters. Stephen Bucci, who served America for 3 decades as an Army Special Forces officer and top Pentagon official, now a visiting fellow in the Heritage Foundation's Allison Center for Foreign Policy Studies. Stephen, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
It's my pleasure. Thanks for having me back.
Well, we're close to a deal to provide temporary passage through the strait. Responding to that, as well as the Kennedy argument, sort of in support of the war, but pressing the president and his emissaries to provide more explanation here in terms of what the objective is and what the real choice before us is, as opposed to, as he said, the pretend choice of a forever war, the false choice of a forever war or pretend peace.
I think Kennedy put it pretty eloquently there. We needed to do this, and we were either going to do it later or do it now. Many presidents before Trump have passed on that choice, and just not doing it because it was the right thing to do, but doing it because it was the convenient thing to kick it down the road and avoid the issue altogether. But Trump, I think, to his credit, confronted the threat, recognized where it was going to go if we didn't do anything, and has taken action. Now, you may not like that action, and there's lots of people carping, including me, because I think I'd rather see him get it done and stop this kind of seemingly craziness about the negotiations. That does not appeal to me at all, and I don't think it should appeal to anyone. But that's what he's doing. But I do agree with Kennedy's assessment that this would be a really good time, Mr. President, to go on TV, use the bully pulpit, explain in detail exactly why we did this. My preference would be we're done with the negotiations. These guys either capitulate in the sense not of the surrender ceremony on the battleship, but stop the nonsense. Give up this fiction that they somehow have a divine right to control the Straits of Hormuz. I don't care if they drag the Omanis in or not. That's a no-go. We're not going to let them control those straits. We're not going to let them take fees and fines for people who don't do it exactly their way. That would be at least reputationally suicidal to do that. That would be the equivalent of us surrendering to them on the battleship's deck. So explain to the people, show them why we need to do this, map out a legitimate path forward to reaching that conclusion that we need to have, and then start executing. I think it would be great. Talk to the American people, announce it, and then look at your watch and say, oh, and the planes are hitting their targets right now. That would be the way to go in my mind.
What do you make of this development between the Saudis and the Turks and the Pakistanis, a joint defense agreement that was signed? So, an attack on one of the three is an attack on all these Sunni theocracies, essentially. Joining forces. That doesn't strike me as taking a hard line with respect to the Iranians, particularly given some of the things that Erdogan has said and done.
Yeah, it's weird to see a development like that where the Saudis are the most pro-American and the most moderate of the three regimes involved in the discussions there. I trust Mohammed bin Salman way more than I trust Erdogan or the Pakistani government. That Erdogan, does, to his credit, is pretty obvious that he's a Muslim Brotherhood guy and that he is now an Islamist and not, just happened to be a Muslim member of NATO. I think it's not the greatest look for a NATO member to go make another mutual defense agreement like this. The Pakistanis, I've worked a lot with the Pakistanis in my special ops life. I like their special operators. They're really, really qualified and good guys. But their government has always been, about the definition of a two-faced friend. They shake our hands. They work with us on one hand. At the same time, they're working against us with other parts of their government. So I think the Saudis may be doing this to have some influence on those other two to maintain control over them. I don't know if that's a useful effort or not. It makes me a little nervous, and it's definitely something our government needs to be watching.
Well, it seems to me this is an attempt by the Turks to project power in the region.
Yeah, I mean, the Turks, much like the Iranians, want to be the empire again. They still believe that the Ottoman Empire was the height of civilization, and they want to go back to it. They think they deserve to go back to it. More so now that Islam is, a giant Muslim empire. But, the rest of the region doesn't want them having that kind of power, which is why I think that the only logical explanation for the Saudis doing this is to have an extra degree of control over them or influence that they wouldn't have if they didn't have this relationship. That's some comfort, but not a lot to me.
Yeah.
I think the Saudis are playing with fire.
Well, and we may be too. The State Department also announced that it had informed Congress under the Arms Export Control Act of a proposed plan by Turkey to transfer nearly $300 million in Turkish-held U.S.-produced weapons to Ukraine, which is the largest such sale ever to Ukraine by the government of Turkey. And then there's a delineation of the weapons, tactical ballistic missiles and launchers and cluster missiles and stuff that they're selling. So that's obviously being done at the behest of the Trump administration. So what's your read on that transaction?
Well, I think that's the Turks playing that card, doing the cooperative thing with the desire to get more. That they want to get the F-35. They don't want anything to change that deal. So I think they're willing to give up some of these, quite good weapons to get other stuff in the future. But again, you could trust Erdogan about as far as you could throw him. He'll look you right in the eye and lie to you and then do something else. So giving them deal sweeteners is not necessarily a path to attaining what you think you're attaining.
Well, just sticking in Eastern Europe for a second, since Ukraine has been invoked, the sanctions bill in honor of Lindsey Graham that was moved before senators went on their, went to their summer camps. The impact of that against the backdrop of this report that U.S. intel agencies warning that Putin could be increasingly willing to authorize provocative actions that extend onto the territory of NATO's Eastern Front, including hybrid operations, cyber attacks, even and other deniable measures short of conventional military campaign. He wants to sort of expand this war on the Eastern Front, NATO's Eastern Front, maybe allegedly. If that's true, is that just sort of saber rattling? Is that just trying to project strength he really doesn't enjoy? And how do the sanctions factor into this U.S. intelligence?
Well, I mean, this is the same strategy that the Russians use to get the eastern part of Ukraine. They go in, they split around with this stuff. They have people going in, the so-called little green men with no patches, and they're Ukrainian patriots fighting for the Russian people in Ukraine, and they're not. They're Soviet or Russian Spetsnaz. we have to watch it, and if the Russians actually start doing that on the the edges of NATO and into NATO member territory, we need to slap them really, really hard, really fast. No wag your finger at them. No telling them, hey, back off on this. They need to send in the forces to hunt down and kill any of those people involved. They need to do offensive cyber back at the targets that that have launched any cyber operations. They really need to sting Russia if they start to do that. They can't allow them to get any confidence out of that, and because one, it'll make our allies really nervous if we don't respond, and two, it'll embolden the Russians to do more.
The going back to the Middle East, Netanyahu rejecting this proposed Gaza peace plan that would have had Hamas lay down their arms in tandem with the gradual withdrawal of Israeli troops from Gaza. And Netanyahu's basically saying, look, I can't do any sort of gradual withdrawal until they completely disarm, which is a position I understand. What I don't understand is why the Trump administration would go public with this deal if they didn't have the Israelis on board.
Yeah, I'm not sure that was the brightest thing that our administration did. The announcement part, working on it's fine. But yeah, there's no way you're going to trust Hamas and start pulling the Israelis out and say, okay, well, this many are out. You guys need to lay down this many arms. Oh, no, they really need to get them all out before we lay down the arms. And you know what's going to happen as soon as the Israeli soldiers, or enough of them to lessen the threat towards Hamas, is accomplished, Hamas is going to turn around and start shooting again. They are not to be trusted. They make the Iranians look honest, for goodness sake.
Yeah.
And the Iranians are not. So that's, I could understand Netanyahu saying, come on, guys, I'm not going to do this. So I don't know why Trump thought if they announced it, I guess, that it would pressure Netanyahu into cooperating. But I don't think we have any reason to want the Israelis to cooperate until this deal is done correctly. And that is, Hamas needs to disarm, needs to break down their structure, particularly for the military parts of it, and then Israel can consider, the risk level in pulling the people out. It's again, negotiating with some of these folks. The only way they will negotiate legitimately is when they know they're beaten. And if they think they can win the negotiation after losing the fight, they'll try and do it. And, I guess you can't blame them for trying, but we should not enable them by going along with it. That's just silly. That's like Obama kind of negotiations.
Yeah,
we might as well bring John Kerry back to do the negotiations for us.
Right. I mean, I remember a simpler time when the stated position of the U.S. government, even if they were playing footsie and trying to be duplicitous and manipulative in the interests of our security interests, which is fine, we do not negotiate with terrorists. I mean, so I sort of like to start from that basis and say, okay, we'll engage, understanding exactly who these people are, and we're willing to deploy diplomatic efforts and so forth, but keep it very general and gooey, as opposed to pretending that Hamas is going to be a partner in some Middle East peace any more than the mullahs in Tehran are going to be. I mean, it's just a little bit too much Norman Vincent Peale for me.
Oh, 100%, especially with Hamas. I mean, come on. Hamas is still lying to, there were no sexual crimes on October 7th.
Please.
We just fought the military. Come on, they burned families alive in their homes and cars. They executed infants in front of their parents. This is the stuff that was done was horrific. And Hamas, frankly, is still really proud of themselves. They thought they pulled off a really good op. they're monsters. If you know, I don't use that term lightly, but from the standpoint of the law of war, they are the ultimate terrorists here.
Just another matter before we let you go. Department of War revoking former Secretary of the Air Force Frank Kendall's eligibility for access to classified information and his ability to hold any sensitive position because they believe, Hegseth and company clearly believe that he was the leak of the unauthorized disclosure of information about Air Force One's capabilities that resulted in having a plane switch having to be done for the president. Just general, what you think, where things stand in the Pentagon with people that are acting in the interest of their perhaps political disposition rather than the interests of America's national security, including the president's security. You know, how much is this still a problem left over from the last administration? And does this call into question the protocols regarding classified information and access?
Well, I'll be honest with you that this habit of people in sensitive positions or formerly in sensitive positions who leak things because they're trying to either curry favor with political parties running around or with potential employers. If you don't crush that, it's going to continue. And it happens no matter who's in office. This is not just an anti-Trump thing or anything like that. This stuff happens with, it happened when I was in the Pentagon. People would do stuff like that. And it's people need to pay a price for breaking the law and breaking the agreements that they made when they were in those positions of authority and had access to the classified data, and taking away their clearance, banning them from positions of authority going forward has teeth in it, because they're not going to get the same consulting jobs. They're not going to come back into government and be able to do those things that they've done in the past. We've let them get away with it for too long. Look, Secretary Kendall, I know him. He's a nice guy. He's a smart guy. If he did that, or there is enough evidence that the department feels he did that, then you either charge him with a crime and do it, punitively that way, or you use the administrative teeth that is available, strip him of that stuff, and send out the word that people are no longer, invulnerable to punishment when they do this crap. It's unprofessional. It's hurtful to the nation, and it's just inappropriate for people of the level of somebody like Kendall, who should know better and should not be a selfish prig to do this stuff to get himself jobs. Pay the price. I don't have any problem with it.
Stephen Bucci served America for 3 decades as an Army Special Forces officer and top Pentagon official, now a visiting fellow in the Heritage Foundation's Allison Center for Foreign Policy Studies. Stephen, thank you as always.
It's my pleasure. Have a great week.
And Stephen joined us on the AlphaWealthGroup.com answer line.
The stories you need to know to start your day. This is Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
Insurance came out about the roof. Offered us $15,000. I was thrilled.
I know it seems like a lot, but I'm not sure that number is that generous. Insurance is usually going to lowball you.
I mean, I already found 2 companies who could replace it for that.
Sure, contractors will make it fit that budget, but they're cutting corners to make it work.
How's that?
Cheap materials, lower grade shingles with a poor warranty, reusing old flashing, cheap underlayment.
How would I even know?
You wouldn't. That's exactly why I'd call New Edge Improvement. They'll go through your insurance quote line by line, catch what's being cut, and fight to get you covered. You have a beautiful home, and New Edge Improvement will do a quality install and help you get the roof you're owed. One that matches the quality of what you had.
Thanks. I'll give New Edge Improvement a call.
New Edge Improvement. Visit them today at newedgeimprovement.com. Again, that's newedgeimprovement.com and tell them AM 560 sent you.
7:32 in the QC Kinetics newsroom. Watch out today. Heavy storms crossing the area by the afternoon, with damaging winds, humid, and a high of 84. And cleanup does continue around the Chicago area after late night storms pounded the area with rain and high winds. Community members gathered at a restaurant in Bridgeport calling for federal help and additional resources to combat a surge in crime and gun violence across the city.
I'm not counting on the politicians to fix this. I'm not waiting for the police to do anything. We, the people, have to come together and figure out a different way of when we get upset with one another.
The gathering at a restaurant Sunday came in the wake of multiple shootings over the weekend. Several injured, at least 4 were killed. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is formally rejecting President Trump's Gaza board of peace plan.
Benjamin Netanyahu and Donald Trump's relationship has had its ups and downs, as we've seen in the trajectory of the war with Iran. So this is yet another bump in that road that they're clearly going to have to navigate.
Netanyahu says Hamas must fully demilitarize before any withdrawal of his military will occur. Montana GOP Senator Tim Sheehy gave a speech on the Senate floor discussing the war with Iran. This as President Donald Trump claims the U.S. is, quote, semi-negotiating, end quote, with Iran. Sheehy explains how he thinks Iran has been able to keep opposing the U.S. for 4 decades.
No one ever accused them of being stupid. They are radical and crazy, and they're bloodthirsty savages, but they are not stupid. And they have invested billions of dollars all over the world over the past half century in universities and media outlets to make sure that they win the messaging war.
In other news, we're following progressive candidates for governor in Wisconsin and U.S. Senate in Minnesota are making their final pushes ahead of Tuesday's election. Democrat incumbents in Connecticut are also trying to fend off progressive challengers. And the trial of a man accused of orchestrating the 1996 killing of rapper Tupac Shakur begins this week. The unsolved case has gripped the hip-hop world for 30 years. Dwayne Davis has pleaded not guilty to one charge of murder. Chicago sports. White Sox win the series with Cleveland after a 5-3 win and a Colson-Montgomery home run. The Cubs claim their 3-game set with the Royals. Following a 10-2 blowout, they visit Washington next. And NBA great Illinois native Don Nelson is dead at the age of 86. The news service of Salem Surround, a local digital marketing agency, providing high-performing digital solutions to surround your target audience. Go to surroundchicago.com today. A check of traffic and weather coming your way next on AM 560.
Sean Fest returns on August 28th at the Westin Chicago Northwest in Itasca. Be a part of a live, on-location broadcast of The Sean Thompson Show, including a performance of the national anthem, followed by live music, food, drinks, and an opportunity to meet Sean Thompson. Registration is free. Go to 560theanswer.com/SeanFest. That's 560theanswer.com/SHAUN Fest. Sponsored in part by Virago and by State Farm Insurance Agent Anthony DeGrotto.
American Custom Flooring in Niles is hosting a one-day customer appreciation event. Enjoy free food and drinks from 9 to 3 on Saturday, August 22nd. Save big on all countertops. Browse beautiful slabs on display or peruse through hundreds of remnant pieces for smaller projects. If you've shopped for countertops before, you know the hassle. The person who sells the countertops isn't the one measuring, fabricating, or installing. At American Custom Flooring, your countertop orders are handled under one roof, and you'll work with the same person from start to finish. With a 20,000 square foot showroom and a 30,000 square foot warehouse, choose the perfect stone for your home. Plus, you won't pay for wasted material. Don't miss their one-day event, Saturday, August 22nd, or step into the showroom today, located just north of Howard and Caldwell in Niles. Learn more at AmericanFlooring.com. American Custom Flooring, your one-stop shop for flooring, cabinets, and countertops.
Do you owe $10,000 or more to the IRS like Mark?
I've been doing home remodeling for 30 plus years, but the economy crashed. I wound up losing my home, losing my job, and on top of that, owing the IRS a ton of money. I owed the IRS $114,000. It really, truly was the worst part of my life.
Then Mark found tax relief advocates.
On news radio, I heard about TRA, and I thought, what's the worst that could happen? So I picked up the phone and I called them. When it was all said and done, TRA settled my $114,000 debt for $100, and I'm telling you, I was ecstatic. Could not believe it. Would recommend TRA to anyone.
If you owe 10 or even hundreds of thousands of dollars to the IRS, don't lose hope. Do what Mark did and call TRA for a consultation.
But TRA did. They gave me a second chance, and I'm forever grateful.
Visit TRA.com or call 800-575-8924. 800-575-8924. That's 800-575-8924.
Hair Volume from New Nordic will make your hair look thick and healthy. Hair Volume is available online at Amazon and NewNordicUSA.com or in the hair care aisle at your local CVS.
7:38 Team Hochberg Traffic Center time, a service of Rasmussen University. With Rasmussen University, you don't have to be afraid of paying for college thanks to transparent cost and financial aid options for those who qualify. Learn more at rasmussen.edu, rasmussen.edu. Lakeshore Drive, problem spot northbound right at Hollywood. An accident cleared off the Tri-State southbound at 31st. Stop and go in the construction zone northbound 53 between the Ike and Kirchhoff. And because of overnight power outages due to the storms, traffic signals are blinking red all the way around Rand Road and Lake Cook Road in Deer Park. Chicago's Morning Answer continues next. Now a check of your forecast in the Air Right Heating and Cooling Weather Center. Heavy thunderstorms on tap for the afternoon and a high of 84.
Get the latest weather, traffic, and news updates online at 560theanswer.com.
This hourly segment is brought to you by the Alpha Wealth Group, bringing the trilogy of estate, tax, and investment planning together. Visit alphawealthgroup.com for a free report.
Now, from The Signature, a division of Esquire Bank Studios.
Top of the morning, Dan Proft here. Former DSAer Jake Altman, he had an op-ed over at the Free Press that we poured over last week. He followed that up by sitting down for an extended podcast, Free Press, to talk about, what he learned about the DSA from the inside, much of which disturbed him enough that he would leave and essentially rat them out. Although there's really no ratting them out because all he's describing is what they're presenting. I mean, there is no, nuance to what you're hearing from these, public-facing DSA types, from Hassan Piker to these useful idiots with titles, these, co-Führers of DSA organizations at the state as well as the national level. Here's what Altman said, though, just about to sort of address this. It's a small cadre of apparatchiks. It doesn't represent anything major or significant, and it's they're outnumbered by more elder statesmen who just have this sort of Scandinavian version of socialism they're trying to bring to America. If only they were trying to impose the Swedish model on America. The Swedish model has gotten a lot more free enterprise over the last 30 years, and Comrade Bernie and others haven't noticed. But anyway, Jake Altman on what the actual composition of DSA is.
I would say a lot of the younger people are very, very radical. DSA itself makes a distinction, an important distinction, between paper members, who are people who give the organization their credit card and never come to a meeting, and cadre, who are hardcore activist members who show up to all the meetings and do all the work. The cadre are incredibly radical. The paper members might be, think AOC and Bernie Sanders are great and let's get Medicare for all. That is not the hardcore that's running the organization. It is not. They are extremists. they believe, many of them believe, that any means are justified to achieve their goal. They are explicitly revolutionaries. They want to pull down our government institutions. They want to pull down our economic order. And they believe, they really do believe this, that they can build something better in its place.
Right. By any means necessary, including violence. He didn't say it, but it's certainly implied. And it's being practiced. And it brings together totalitarians of all stripes, including Islamists from Michigan or Minnesota or southwest suburban Chicago. And the platform that they're out and proud about, that includes, disbanding the Senate and nationalizing all major companies and selected industries and so forth. That's just a platform, and I don't agree, Francesca Hong. I don't agree with some of it. Well, give us one thing you don't agree with. I guess I don't agree with abolishing the Senate, but I'm on board with the other stuff. Well, if you're a DSA, the radicals in charge that Jake Altman's describing, they're serious about their platform, and they're serious about you abiding it. Let me give you an example. These lovely young Reds, Michaela B. and Francis Gill, on a DSA Zoom call.
This is actually something that we committed to at convention, having our endorsed candidates supporting the program. It's a requirement now. And so that'll be incorporated into our endorsement process.
It sounds so radical, like abolish the Senate, abolish the Supreme Court, like et cetera, but it's not. Like those are the things that need to happen.
So whenever people are like, oh my God, they want to get rid of the president, I was like, well, I don't know what we would call it in the future. We could call it the head honcho of whatever, it's like we might not have a president.
Yeah, they're revolutionary, something I've been saying for many moons now. For more on this and the funding mechanism for these young Reds, Jeffrey Kane joins us, author of The Perfect Police State, an investigation into China's surveillance dystopia, and Steve Jobs in Exile, the untold story of Next and the remaking of an American visionary. He has recently written about DSA and the funding streams that support these efforts and are propping up these candidates like Al Sharia in Michigan, Francesca Hong, who looks to be the DSA nominee after tomorrow's primary in Wisconsin for governor. Jeffrey Kane, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Good to be here, Dan.
So the funding streams, I read your piece, and it's some of the names that have been in circulation, but let's dig into it, starting with, say, Naval Singman. And the interesting thing about him, since he's hunkered down there in and around Beijing, the intersection between good old-fashioned atheistic communism, as practiced by, say, Mao and Xi, and Islamism, as promoted by people like Hassan Piker.
Right. Well, there is a growing intersection here, and Naval Singam, for the audience who doesn't know about this, he's a man. He's a wealthy donor who lives in China. A grand jury has convened to look into whether or not he broke laws and failed to register as a foreign agent, meaning that the government is questioning whether he might actually be on the payroll or working for some way for a foreign government. He denies this. He denies this and hasn't been charged with a crime. But the intersection here is that Hassan Piker and his ilk, so the people who are promoting these extreme forms of socialism and revolutionary violence in the United States, they're all in the same circle. And Hassan Piker went on a ship to Cuba to protest U.S. sanctions and got a subpoena from the Treasury Department. And then Hassan Piker, so this was funded in part by Naval Singham's group.
Code Pink.
From China. Yeah, Code Pink. And so Hassan Piker gets on his Twitch stream and says that these are all great guys, that the U.S. government is just after him, but these are good guys, these are good people, and I'm innocent of everything. So there's a very troubling circle emerging between the Islamist Socialist Alliance in the United States and the hardcore socialists, people like Singham, who currently live in China and are currently being looked into by a grand jury around their foreign links. So we don't know the full story here yet, I have to say, but that does suggest that there is something happening here with the Democratic Socialists of America and the people around them.
And and again, Singham is not the only billionaire involved here in the conversation, and even not the highest profile. Where now it's George and now Alex Soros, long been financiers of whatever strain of leftism was ascendant, including this. Are there discernible ties between, say, Singham and Soros? And let me throw somebody else at you, another billionaire, Pierre Omidyar, who is the founder of eBay, who also funds all sorts of hard left activism.
So I'm not sure about any links between Singham and other donors involved in activism, but what sets Singham apart is that he actually lives in China, and he is surrounded by people who literally praise Mao Zedong, a dictator, the dictator of China during the Cold War, who was responsible for at least 40 million deaths. Hassan Piker appeared at the National Convention, the University Convention for the Democratic Party. This is not even a socialist convention. This is the regular Democratic Party, and he appeared in the Mao suit, the suit that Mao Zedong and his communist cadres would have worn at the height of the Cold War when they were massacring their own people. And he showed up, and people were just shocked. And these are center-left Democrats who are, I talked to them and they said, what the heck is this guy doing? So even in the Democratic Party, especially in the moderate wing, there are deep concerns about this radical revolutionary wing that includes the DSA and Hassan Piker and Neville Singham and their influence over these kinds of revolutionary operation, whatever it is they're trying to do.
But there's not. Certainly, there's no evidence that those concerns are being expressed in any way other than privately, right? Because you've had formal endorsements now of Al Sayed in Michigan, and Pete Buttigieg is on the campaign trail with him already. Schumer and everybody, and Gillibrand falling in line. Hillary Clinton now talking about, here's what the Republicans are going to do, and here's our challenge. But there's no attempt to work around or purge what's happening within the establishment Democrat Party, with perhaps the exception of John Fetterman. But he seems to be more likely to end up being in the Republican Party than he is to be successful purging this element from the Democrats.
Right, and that is one of the criticisms of the Democratic Party right now. That the people who are on the center left, the so-called moderates, are moving further and further left to try to appease this socialist wing that's now emerging. So the Hassan Pikers of the world, the Twitch streamers, the extremists who promote violence, these guys are taking over the rhetoric of the Democratic Party, and a lot of left-wing Democrats are now caught in this question of, do I move more to the center like John Fetterman, who supports Israel and who has spoken out against all kinds of violence and terrorism, without any reservation, or do I move further left and, try to somehow appease or get the votes of these people who are starting to take over the public discourse? So one thing I've heard quite a few people say, and, I used to work in D.C., I used to work on Capitol Hill, and I know people from both parties, and a lot of people are wondering now if the socialists are going to save the Republican Party, because now, there's going to be a Republican win in the midterm elections, in the next presidential election. The further left that they go and the more they alienate regular people who just want to, enjoy our freedoms and enjoy America, the more they're putting their own party in danger of just being seized and radicalized, and no one's going to vote for them.
Well, although, what choice do they have? When they're just looking at what's politically expedient 90 days from now, they're, willing, this is just politics, selling their soul for 30 pieces of silver. Because Jake Altman made this point in that interview I played a clip from. A couple of years ago, we surveyed our own DSA membership, and 36% of the membership identified as communists. So this is self-identification. And he suggested today particularly the activist set, the actual doers, not just the paper members, as he was describing. He says it's much greater than he suspects it's much greater than that now. So it's not a wing of the party; it's the fuselage, and it is becoming increasingly dominant at a rapid pace, with electoral success providing, a tailwind, and there doesn't seem to be much resistance. Bill Maher and John Fetterman are not going to be enough.
No, Bill Maher and John Fetterman are not going to be enough, and it is deeply concerning. So even me, I have a column in The Spectator. I write about this topic. I just published on the DSA and looked into their financing networks as well as their, praise of Mao Zedong, the mass murderer of China. And literally, they're just actively praising him. And when I posted this, I always get lots of angry comments from either current or former DSA members. And I'm literally just pointing out on the record things that their leaders have said, praising mass murderers around the world, praising these communist dictators, and they won't grapple with that. They're not contending with it. They say that it's fine. Literally one person pointed out, claimed to me that it's okay to praise Mao Zedong because supposedly America has, also been evil. So therefore we should, support the Chinese dictator. This is literally the logic that they use to justify their pro-violent rhetoric. And that's what's so concerning. So I'm watching the DSA closely. I'm watching these left-wing, these far-left groups really closely in my own journalism because I'm interested to see how far they're going to take this. Does the rhetoric actually mean they're going to become violent in the streets? And that's what I'm deeply concerned about.
Jeffrey Kane is the author of The Perfect Police State, an investigation into China's surveillance dystopia, and Steve Jobs in Exile, the untold story of Next and the remaking of an American visionary. Jeffrey Kane, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Good to be here, Dan.
And you join us at the alphawealthgroup.com answer line.
The more you listen, the more you'll know. This is Chicago's Morning Answer. Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
Summer in Chicago. Don't spend it painting. Do what your neighbor Ken did. He called Rhino Shield.
We bought the house 30 years ago in 1995. It's cedar lap siding. The stain that was put on the house, it only lasted about 7 years.
You see, Rhino Shield ceramic technology is formulated specifically for our unique climate right here in Chicago and stands up to our extreme temperature swings.
And then I saw a house that was done in Rhino Shield, and it looked absolutely gorgeous. And I started hearing about the fact that it's got a 25-year warranty on it that's transferable.
Rhino Shield resists chipping, flaking, and peeling, and it is backed by our extraordinary 25-year warranty.
While it costs more initially for Rhino Shield, over the life of the product, it's a lot less.
Chicago, get the guaranteed protection of Rhino Shield right now for 10% off the regular price. This offer is for a limited time, so call now, 847-850-1132 or ChicagoRhinoShield.com.
Go Rhino Shield.
Signature, a division of Esquire Bank, offers Chicago businesses relationship-first banking. Signature knows your name and your story because personalized banking still matters. I'm Dan Proft, and I know this because Signature is where I do my business banking.
Hi, I'm Tony Patrick, CEO of Total Wall and a client of Signature. We produce high-performance materials used in exterior insulating finish systems and other stucco applications. Every growing business needs a strong team behind it. Over the years, Signature has been more than a financial partner. They've shared their knowledge, offered guidance, and connected us with trusted professionals who help strengthen our business. They're a valuable extension of our team and a true partner. That's why I value my relationship with Signature.
Signature helps local businesses succeed. Want to learn how Signature can help turn your business vision into reality? Call Signature, a division of Esquire Bank, at 773-467-5600 or visit signature.esquirebank.com. Esquire Bank, member FDIC, equal housing lender.
I remember sitting in the kitchen, heartbroken, overwhelmed, staring at costs and a list of decisions. I prayed for strength and reached out to Catholic Cemeteries of Chicago, only to hear that Mom had already pre-planned everything so my siblings and I would be protected. Because she planned ahead, we weren't pulled apart by heartbreaking decisions.
Visit CatholicCemeteriesChicago.org or call 708-236-5400 to schedule a free consultation.
AM 560, The Answer.
Time now for another reason why Dan Proft is single.
Yeah, this is a quickie because it's largely self-explanatory. Wall Street Journal lifestyle piece over the weekend. This summer's hottest arm candy is a private equity boyfriend. Apparently, Reese Witherspoon, Nicole Kidman, and Olivia Rodrigo are all hanging out with these money changers in the private equity space. And, well, I mean, this is what I think of when I hear private equity guy. I think of private equity guy, Johnny Hilbrand. And if this is what chicks are going for, I'm out. Johnny up in Lake Geneva over the weekend.
Good morning from Lake Geneva. You know, Lake Geneva is known as the Newport of the Midwest. Yeah, this little lake smack dab in the middle of middle America. We passed so many Culvers on the way in, which is hilarious because my PE private equity firm owns Culvers. I'd never eat there, though, of course. We got tons of boats on the water. Grand Pupi is Chris Craft that once belonged to the Wrigleys. And recently a Riva that was purchased from Venice. Not a Streblo. No. We're members at the Lake Geneva Country Club, so we love golf and tennis there. The kiddos take lessons, and they take sailing lessons at the yacht club, of course. And we know the porters. We're obviously waterfront, a beautiful, beautiful estate. And we do a huge fireworks display off of a barge every year, so really stimulates the local economy. And the locals love me. I mean, they love me. I spend like $700,000 on 45 minutes of fireworks every summer, and then another $150K on the cleanup. So, you know, and Richard Driehaus was a dear friend. And I grew up attending his iconic parties. I went to the Wizard of Oz one as a little lad. It was awesome. Yeah. So, and Wipey loves the Gordy's boys who fill up the boat with gas. Yeah. It's becoming a bit of an issue. Yeah, because they like her back. Yeah. I mean, she's a total rocket. So.
Yeah. So if that's what the Distaff site is going for, then I'm clearly out. Coming up at 8:08, we'll continue this discussion about the DSA that we started with Jeffrey Kane here, because we need to fold in AOC and her comments as well as performative hormone injections in advance of her prospective 2028 run for president. But the infight, there's some infighting there, too. There's some concern about AOC among the hardcore DSAers. All that at 8:08. It's now 8 o'clock on AM 560 WIND Chicago.
She wants to go from appointed senator to elected senator. I'm Dave Anthony, Fox News.
I want to, focus on the struggles of the South Carolina families because, like them, I feel those same struggles.
Senator Darlene Graham is one of 10 Republicans running in tomorrow's special primary to replace her late brother Lindsey Graham as the GOP Senate nominee in South Carolina. Congressman Russell Fry and Ralph Norman among them. Graham has a Trump endorsement. She also tells Fox she stands with the president on Iran.
We have to protect our nation. I realize that the price of gas is a little high right now, but I think President Trump is going to get us through this, and the price of gas will eventually come down.
Iran is making new demands before allowing shipping to flow fully through the Strait of Hormuz, wanting American forces to leave the region and the U.S. to compensate Iran for all the bombing damage. President Trump tells Axios, we're only semi-negotiating at this point.
The Wall Street Journal reports for weeks President Trump has been laying the groundwork to declare victory in the Iran war should Tehran fully reopen the Strait of Hormuz, even floating the idea privately to senior aides that he's willing to walk away without a nuclear deal.
That's Fox's Trey Yingst in Tel Aviv. As Ukraine keeps taking the war deep inside Russia, targeting oil refineries, officials say there a drone attack today has killed at least 13 people, wounded 75.
Ukraine has battered Russian oil facilities on a near daily basis in recent months. The campaign's eaten into refining capacity and unsettled the Russian public. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says it's to force Russian leader Vladimir Putin to the negotiating table. Russia has also regularly hit Ukraine with missiles, glide bombs and drones, causing thousands of civilian casualties.
Fox's Jonathan Savage, an accused Irish drug cartel leader, is back in Ireland. Daniel Kinahan returned last night in handcuffs, sent to court in Dublin, then jailed after being extradited from Dubai, where Kinahan was arrested in April facing charges. He ran a drug smuggling and money laundering organization that stretched from Europe to the U.S. America's listening to Fox News. 8:02 in Chicago in the QC Kinetics newsroom. Humid start to the day, downpours in the late morning, and a chance of a heavy afternoon thunderstorm with a high of 84. Community members gathered at a restaurant in Bridgeport Sunday, calling for more federal help and additional resources after what they describe as a surge in gun and crime violence across the city.
I'm not counting on the politicians to fix this. I'm not waiting for the police to do anything. We, the people, have to come together and figure out a different way of when we get upset with one another.
The gathering came after several were injured in a shooting and at least 4 others were killed. The Office of Comptroller is investigating a cemetery in Chicago. Susana Mendoza announcing a probe into a crematory authority license at the Bohemian National Cemetery. Meantime, dozens of improperly stored bodies were removed from a South Side funeral home after they were discovered Thursday by state officials.
I'm really concerned about my nieces. For them to have an urn and they don't know who is there.
Families continue showing up at the funeral home looking for answers. Many say they were left waiting for weeks or months with no details about remains that now they're no longer sure are their loved ones. Chicago sports, White Sox beat Cleveland 5-3. Cubs over the Royals 10-2. The news, a service of the AM 560 store. T-shirts, hoodies, and more from your favorite AM 560 brands when you go to 560theanswer.com/store. Time for the AM 560 Business Beat, a service of Signature, a division of Esquire Bank.
I'm Maria Bartiromo, and this is the Fox Business Report.
Meta Platforms CEO Mark Zuckerberg is outlining his vision for artificial intelligence. Zuckerberg has released an essay that promotes investing in communities near its data centers and releasing open weight models that would allow anyone to upload and modify an AI system. A $1 billion fund will be set up to help locations where Meta's data centers are set up. Tractor Supply is closing about 75 underperforming PetSense pet specialty stores and is lowering prices. Its profit declined more than 16% in the recent quarter. The Wall Street Journal says Ford is planning a 4-door hybrid gas-powered version of its Mustang. It'll be the first time the automaker ever offered the sports car with 4 doors. That's your Fox Business Report. I'm Jenny Coselda. Invested in you.
Alex Marlow understands why Iran is still fighting.
They see it as a win-win, and they see that they can beat Trump in the attritional manner. Basically, they hold on longer. If they're willing to hold on longer, and we lose the war at home, the PR war, then they feel like they can declare victory. And so the longer they can drag this thing out, the better. That's their approach.
The Alex Marlow Show. Afternoons at 3, right before Sean Thompson at 4 on AM 560. The Answer.
As a local business owner, you get called every week by marketing companies. We get it. We have hundreds of satisfied customers. Here's what a satisfied client recently said.
Open enrollment is going great. We're hitting record numbers. Thank you so much for this report. It really is amazing to see how the marketing is really shaping our enrollment around the city.
Salem Surround. Is your business hard to find online? Meet with a digital marketer today for ideas that will make your business stand out. Visit salemsurround.com.
Most investments today feel like second jobs. Real estate, you're a landlord. Stocks, you're a day trader. Crypto, you're a full-time researcher. You've got a life to live. Your investment should help you live it. That's why more Americans are choosing gold. Noble Gold has helped thousands protect their future with real physical gold. Visit noblegoldinvestments.com to get your free wealth protection kit. That's noblegoldinvestments.com.
Past performance may not be indicative of future results. Investing in precious metals, including gold, involves risks. Consult with your tax attorney or financial professional before making an investment decision.
In a recent survey of 123,000 wireless customers, Pure Talk was the only wireless company to receive 5 stars in every category: coverage, support, value, and data. What else do you need to know? Switch to Pure Talk today and get any plan, including their top shelf unlimited data plan, for just $15 a month for your first 3 months. No contract, no commitment. Dial pound 250, say micro, and let Pure Talk's U.S. customer service team help you make the switch.
A small business affirmation from Progressive. Bakery owners, you will be loved today. Every pastry will be flaky. Your cake will make a child's day. Your delivery van won't get sideswiped by a distracted garbage truck driver. But if so, breathe easy, knowing you'll get back to business quickly with Progressive protecting your commercial auto. See if you can save in as little as 8 minutes at progressivecommercial.com.
Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates.
8:07, Team Hochberg Traffic Center time. Plainfield, an accident Ridge, northbound at Route 126. That's in Kendall County, so careful there. Ridge and Route 126. Crash in Lockport, 9th Street. As you travel there, being swept out of your way, but still a problem near Canal. Lombard at accident Wilson and Elizabeth. I-65 in northwest Indiana really jammed up northbound between US 30 and 61st. Delays on Lakeshore Drive northbound between Roosevelt and Monroe. And an earlier accident on the Dan Ryan has things jammed up from the Bishop Ford merge all the way to Marquette, 67th this morning. Chicago's Morning Answer continues next. Now a check of your morning forecast. In our Air Right Heating and Cooling Weather Center, here's Jason Caterina.
Today will be cloudy and humid with a heavy thunderstorm expected in the afternoon. The thunderstorms could bring flooding downpours, damaging wind gusts, and possibly an isolated tornado. The high temperature will reach 83 degrees. I'm meteorologist Jason Caterina on AM 560, The Answer.
Get the latest weather, traffic, and news updates online at 560theanswer.com.
Now, from The Signature, a division of Esquire Bank Studios.
This is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft on AM 560. The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan Proft here. Prospective 2028 presidential candidate, AOC. Yeah, seriously. On This Week with Jonathan Karl, talking about DSA. And Jonathan Karl went through the platform a little bit with her and how does she square her membership in the local collective, the DSA of New York, with her support or lack thereof for the platform.
But by the way, just a quick definitional thing. What, in your mind, is the difference between socialism and communism?
I think, to me, the fundamental differences, there's many.
Yeah.
One prevailing one is democracy. And I believe that democratic socialists are fundamentally pro-democracy. And we believe in the ballot box. We believe in respecting the outcomes of elections and governing democratically and ensuring that the ideas and policies that are implemented are won through popular vote and popular opinion. And so I think that's why so much of what we focus on is also making sure that we are providing for the majority of Americans, guaranteeing health care, raising wages, strengthening the right to a union. And I think that that's at its core what we're about.
Are you still a member of Democratic Socialists of America?
Of the New York City chapter.
The New York City chapter, not the national?
No.
And what's the difference?
So every DSA chapter is formed locally.
Yeah.
And so the New York City DSA chapter, those are folks that you know. It's kind of like your local union chapter.
Yeah.
And yeah.
So, because I know there was that strange moment in 2024 when the national chapter took away your endorsement.
Yes.
But I was looking through the DSA program, and this is the national program. I'm sure you've seen the document. It was adopted just a few months ago. But some of the positions here: defund the Department of Defense, close overseas military bases, abolish the police and prison system, grant amnesty to all immigrants in the U.S., replace the Supreme Court and executive judiciary with a chosen by lower to Congress, abolish the Senate, public ownership of corporations and essential industries. I mean, those are some positions that you're going to be hearing a lot about this fall from Republicans.
And I think we're also going to be hearing a lot about Donald Trump's commitment to getting us into a reckless war in Iran, his collaboration with big companies to make sure that everything from groceries to rent stay sky high. And I think that people are less interested in these academic debates, and they're more interested in how we're going to bring their bills down and make sure that they can afford to see a doctor.
Yeah. How'd you like her distinction between communism and socialism? The socialists really believe in democracy. Is that right? Socialists believe in democracy. El Sayed is a dumb socialist. El Sharia, El Sayed, the Senate nominee in Michigan. He's a proponent of democracy and power of the ballot box and so forth. It's interesting because this is what he said at a CARE conference on the prospect of banning Sharia law that was initiated by referendum in the state of Oklahoma. Listen to the comparisons.
بسم الله والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. Question 755. When the state of Oklahoma voted in a referendum to amend the Constitution to ban Sharia law. What does that mean? I don't know. And yet the voters banned it anyway. And I don't have to tell you that the same exact forces that drove native peoples from their land 2 centuries ago, destroyed Black Wall Street a century ago, bombed a building decades ago, and tried to ban Sharia law not a decade ago, that those forces are alive and well today.
Yeah, so banning Sharia law is the equivalent of, the massacre on Black Wall Street in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Now, actually, Sharia law, which he's clearly a proponent of, is comparative to the sorts of racial totalitarian policies that punctuated the worst moments in this country's history. But you see how he's flipping the script. But he's a Democrat. Text from 847, doesn't Russia offer elections? Yes, right, Soviet elections. There's one choice, and the one choice gets 99.9% of the vote. And, don't be the nail that sticks up, as the Soviets say back in the day, or did back in the day. But this is all very old for these young apparatchiks, including AOC. She's not so young anymore, 36, but she also doesn't know anything, and there's no intellectual curiosity to learn anything, as she's demonstrated over her nearly a decade in Congress now. And there's no imperative apparently to generate popular support to be taken seriously as a policymaker and political leader. That's the scariest thing of all, but she's hardly the only one. But just before we leave AOC now, too, because she's also evolved since the heady days of defund the police at the height of the response to the George Floyd killing. I mean, you remember.
Standing is that that Francesca Hong has made clear.
And
her
so I
present
don't.
Stances.
When people ask me, what does a world where we defund the police, where defunding police looks like, I tell them it looks like a suburb.
Right, it looks like a suburb, because back in the day, that was in 2020, she said, because in the suburbs, the wealthy suburbs, people, they spend more money on education and social services. So there's not as much money spent on police because there's no need for police because people are being provided for. Really? That's the argument she made in defense of defund police. But now, like with all the crazy things that Francesca Hong and El Sayed and the other candidates that have Mamdani and Mamdani endorsed candidates, what they've all said and are saying, now it's all this. So, come on. That was the silly days of woke 1.0. We're so much more mature now.
Understanding is that Francesca Hong has made clear her present stances to her electorate.
Yeah, she's moved away from a lot
right,
of that.
she's moved away from it. And I have a local city councilman that has this saying, woke one was crazy.
Woke one was crazy. Okay, that's
and I think that what's important is that
it's like those silly kids that commit heinous acts of crime in Chicago. Just kids being silly. Woke one was crazy, like woke 1.0. And now we're the more mature, sophisticated woke 2.0. As what? I mean, Jonathan Karl was too busy giggling along, but what does that mean? So woke 2.0 features an ascendant DSA with the platform planks I just read. That's more mature? That's more radical than just defund police. You've got a 10-point plan now to initiate revolution. And as you heard from Jake Altman last hour, create something better than the constitutional republic we have now. That needs to be replaced wholesale. And that's what they intend to do. And they got a platform. And they got people running around talking about it in no uncertain terms. They're sick of people that just talk or just have authors in to ruminate about how society should be ordered. They want doers. And they've got doers now. Not just candidates, but the cadre, the apparatchiks. The people like Miss Romer, Megan Romer, who is the co-Führer of DSA National. She agreed to an interview with New Yorker's David Remnick. Remember David Remnick in terms of media complicity? Or David Remnick was, the first venerable journalist representing the New Yorker, the gravitas of the New Yorker, to say upon the election of Trump that all the previous rules of journalism, as if they were actually practiced, in terms of being telling both sides of the story and not being an advocate for one policy view or politician over the other, that's all suspended now. Now it needs to be a full-on assault on President Trump because he presents an existential threat to our representative republic. That was David Remnick's position. He led the charge that created hoaxes like the Russian collusion matter and so many more. Now he's trying to, crawl inside the mind, to the extent there is a discernible one there, of people like Megan Romer, who explained how she came to DSA.
But we do believe in taxing the hell out of millionaires. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, what does taxing the hell out of them mean?
I don't have like a solid, but I think.
But shouldn't you? I mean, if you're the co-chair of the DSA, shouldn't you be more specific than just taxing the hell out of something? What exactly do you mean?
So again, it's democracy, right? And we have to look at what we need to spend and what we need. We don't want to depend on the existence of millionaires because that means people are still getting exploited. So, we need to look at what we need to pay for in the interim, what sort of tax base we need for that to happen, and then and build from there.
Yes, well, property seizures, of course. The additional part of that interview, she talks about how she was radicalized by Hillary Clinton's loss, and she started to get involved in Democratic Party politics, but was unsatisfied by the lack of concrete action. And so she was invited by a folk musician friend of hers to a DSA chapter meeting, and she went, and hey, these are people that want to get things done. I want to be a part of that. And look, a decade later, she's the co-Führer of the national organization because she's about getting things done. What things? Revolutionary things. I just always love when people talk about getting things done as if that is a innate good, regardless of what things it is that you're getting done. Okay. And, of course, one of the things not mentioned by AOC or Jonathan Karl is that part of the difference between the posturing of an AOC for her own political interests versus the unabashed disposition of these DSA types who are impatient about bringing the revolution is that you have to take a hard line against Israel. You have to essentially, say sort of the same thing that Miss Romer said, which about, for example, the 10/7 terrorist attack in Gaza.
Daria Lisa Avila Chevalier recently won a primary election in New York City, and is almost sure to win the general election. She attended an October 8th pro-Palestinian, pro-Hamas rally, which many people saw as a justification of the October 7th attack. And some of her tweets have been extremely ugly on this score and on others. Do you fully support her in all these activities and what she's had to say?
I think Daria Lisa can speak for herself, certainly, and I think she's apologized for some pieces of that and has been
not for
quite
attending that rally.
Unapologetic about other pieces of that. And
do you support her yourself in that?
Yeah, I do.
Why?
Because
in other words, you would have gone to that rally had you been able.
That's a good question. I probably would have. Yeah. I don't live in New York City, so I wouldn't have.
One day after the slaughter of 1,200 people and taking of over 200 hostages, you would have come and rallied behind Hamas.
I think that October 7th was largely inevitable. If you put people in an open-air concentration camp and you deprive them of rights, of dignity, of food, of the ability to live in safety, you have to expect that they are going to not take that for that long. And that is not defending any harm of civilians or of non-combatants.
Well, sure.
That is.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is.
You're saying you're supporting it.
I'm saying that I think it was inevitable. I think that you cannot put people in a cage and expect them not to revolt. And I think that that supporting the civilians, the non-combatants, the children who are being killed, that's really the primary thing.
So you live in upstate New York.
Yeah,
you just described.
So the Jews deserve 10/7, just like Americans deserve 9/11. That's the Hassan Piker, Abdul El-Sharia position, right? Well, I appreciate you laying it out. That's the position. Greg in LaGrange.
Good morning, Dan. As I told your call screener, did C.S. Lewis not knock this out in the 1950s and the 60s with the Screwtape series? You know what's inevitable here? What's inevitable is the death of our republic if we let screaming harridans like this woman that you just had on get any semblance of power in our federal and state governments. She probably grew up in a library board. That's how the grassroots work. They grow up like weeds in the library boards, and they move on to bigger and better things to destroy republics. These people are an unmitigated disaster. I don't care how you wrap it in any kind of Christmas wrap that you want. They're out to destroy everything about our culture. Western civilization, Western values, God, family, law and order. That's inevitable. Thanks, Dan.
Thanks for the call, Greg. Actually, El-Sharia, the Senate candidate there in Michigan, and Omar and Tlaib, the two of the socialist Spice Girls, Brotherly Love Spice, MF or Spice, sitting around the table talking about all that they've accomplished since they set out to elect Islamists to positions of authority at the state and federal level.
Ilhan and I first got elected, there were some folks saying, we want more Muslims to get elected, so maybe, tone it down. I know, I was trying to be nice. And she made a note, like, since we've gotten elected, since 2019, 200 Muslims have been elected across the country. Wow. So we think about that for one moment. Is this the incredible movement? I know we were just part of it. We weren't the reason, but
yeah, no need to tone it down now, huh? No, it's going great. And this is not about, categorical opposition to a Muslim being elected to public office in this country. If they're an American citizen, that's a good start. And so, but I mean, you have to distinguish, right? This is, I'm playing identity politics. Dr. Zuhdi Jasser, he's Muslim. I want him to be elected to Congress in Arizona. But I don't want El Sayed to be elected to the U.S. Senate from Michigan. You see the difference? So they can try to play the identitarian game, which they will, because they're race hustlers. And race is the means to totalitarian power. And they will impose their will, as El Sayed has telegraphed, as they're all telegraphing. I mean, again, the most popular streamer, this Hassan Piker guy, who's becoming more and more well-known and is on the campaign trail with all these candidates. I mean, the things that he has said for years, just like these candidates that don't know anything, but are serious about pursuing revolutionary policy change, socio-political policy change, regardless of what they don't know. Hassan Piker's favorite flag when he's just riffing with his buddies.
Let's talk about our favorite flags.
Oh, like overall, what my favorite flag?
Yeah.
Hezbollah. Look it up.
Oh.
I'm not even kidding. It's actually a dope flag.
I don't know flags.
It's this is a.
You know what? I'm gonna be brave.
What?
My favorite flag.
It's got an AK on it and a hand.
Yeah, isn't that cool? Hezbollah, Islamist terrorist organization. So cool. So cool. And Piker's a little bit worried about AOC because she's one of those people that, for political expediency's purposes, might say, like, I don't support Hamas. And we just can't have that. You got to hew to the orthodoxy.
That you get, there are going to be people that, for example, come to you and say, oh, I guess you love Hamas then. And in that moment, you can't yield, okay? And I feel like if push came to shove in that regard, AOC 100%, I can see her being like, no, I hate Hamas. Hamas is the most condemnable force on the planet. They need to go away. And I will vote for every bill that says we need to kill more Hamas. That's what I'm afraid of. I'm afraid that she wouldn't dance around that and basically offer a major victory that basically says, yeah, I'm in the wrong, and I'm sorry for ever criticizing Israel.
Bob in Naperville, you're on Chicago's Morning News.
Yeah, I'm not sure what's more maddening, the political operative like AOC, or Jonathan Karl when he had a layup. AOC had just said she, wants to do what the American people, the majority, want. I was jumping out of my shorts saying, how about voter ID? That's 85% AOC, but he let it go. Thanks for taking my call. Great show.
Thanks, Bob. Yeah, and by the way, I mentioned it, so I just want to squeeze this in here. AOC, again, woke 1.0, so crazy. Remember when it wasn't even a thought to have kids? This is 2018. This is 8 years ago. Because by 2030, because of climate change, the world was going to end. That was her position. You remember.
Our planet is going to make disaster if we don't turn this ship around. And so it's basically like there's scientific consensus that the lives of children are going to be very difficult. And it does lead, I think, young people to have a legitimate question. Is it okay to still have children?
Is it okay? Is it permissible? Yeah. Well, she's changed her tune now that she's 36 and trying to position herself as somebody to be taken seriously for President of the United States, which is just a remarkable statement. I can't even believe I'm saying it as I'm saying it. So she's she started hormone injections for the purposes of freezing her eggs. And of course, this is all presented online, video form, for her, the throngs of Hassan Piker fans also following AOC and giving her some patina of legitimacy in our politics. Remarkable.
Don't be weird about this, even though I know all of you will be. Okay.
Injecting herself in the stomach with the therapy, hormone treatment, whatever.
That wasn't so bad.
Yeah. The only thing I would say, well, a couple of things I'd say from that. First, she should do more crunches. She's starting to balloon, by the way, just as an aside. And secondly, here comes the moralizing about having kids in America in this patriarchal, oppressive society after suggesting not a short time ago, no bother because the world's ending.
Number one, there is so much negative messaging that is directed towards women around our family choices. Period. Kind of no matter what choice you make, if you have kids, when you have kids, whatever, there's so much negativity. And it is designed to dysregulate women, to put us in a place of fear or insecurity so that we are making choices out of that place. We're not doing that. All of these men, oftentimes, who are saying, oh, if you haven't had a kid by 30, like, you're done, it's just not supported. Don't trust these people who are writing abortion laws that don't even understand the first thing about a woman's body, tell you about how many eggs you have at what age. They don't even understand about egg health.
What about those men who are doctors, like OBGYNs? Do they understand? She's so just colossally stupid. It is truly hard to fathom. But I just have one question. As I understand it, you've been with the same dude for 10 years. So if you want to have kids, why don't you have kids with this dude? Even though you're 36, you can, right? I certainly hope this is not all performative for craven political interests, and not and it's something other than a true expression of her empowerment. I'd be so shocked if that was the case. Let's check the headlines with Mike Scott.
8:34 in the QC Kinetics newsroom. Cleanup continues around the Chicago area after late-night storms pounded much of the area with rain and high winds. Charges are pending following a deadly hit-and-run crash on Chicago's north side. It happened late Saturday night. Police tell us the victim was struck by a vehicle in the 1400 block of West Irving Park Road. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu formally rejecting President Trump's Gaza Board of Peace plan.
Benjamin Netanyahu and Donald Trump's relationship has had its ups and downs, as we've seen in the trajectory of the war with Iran. So this is yet another bump in that road that they're clearly going to have to navigate.
Meantime, Iran claims that talks with Oman to reopen the Strait of Hormuz are in final stages, as they called for the U.S. release of frozen assets. A boat captain is under arrest after a woman and a 5-month-old baby died when his vessel capsized near Liberty Island in New York Harbor. Fire Department of New York says 14 people were on that 22-foot motorboat when it capsized. And the Illinois Office of Comptroller is investigating a cemetery here in the Chicago area. Susana Mendoza announcing a probe into the Crematory Authority license at the Bohemian National Cemetery. Meantime, dozens of improperly stored bodies have been removed from a Southside funeral home after they were discovered last Thursday by state officials.
I got a call that his body wasn't there. We called the funeral home, no answers.
Cook County Medical Examiner still trying to identify all the remains found at the South Chicago Chapel on 95th. That could take days. The news service of Steiner Homes. Building homes is more than a business, it's a calling. Family-owned and dedicated to building custom homes with care, integrity, and craftsmanship you can trust. Visit SteinerHomesLTD.com. Steiner Homes, love where you live. A check of traffic and weather coming your way next on AM 560.
Each morning, the newsmakers and the news breakers shaping today's conversation are heard on the AlphaWealthGroup.com answer line on Chicago's Morning Answer. When you need answers about what's happening in your world, you turn to AM 560 The Answer. And when you need answers about how to prepare for and protect your retirement, you turn to the Alpha Wealth Group, now the proud sponsor of the AM 560 Answer line, right here on Chicago's source for news, opinion, and insight. AM 560 The Answer.
Some places just become part of the community. Shannon's Deli is one of those places. For over 25 years, this woman-owned downtown Lombard favorite has been serving fresh, made-to-order sandwiches, homemade soups, signature salads, and some of the friendliest service you'll find anywhere. It's the kind of place where customers become regulars, and regulars become friends. Whether you're grabbing lunch, meeting coworkers, or picking up catering for the office, you'll taste the difference that comes from quality ingredients and genuine hospitality. Shannon's Deli is just 35 feet from the Metro train station. Then, when the sun goes down, head over to Shannon's Irish Pub in Glen Ellen for great food, your favorite drink, live entertainment, and the warm Irish hospitality you've come to expect from the Shannon's family. Shannon's Irish Pub is just 2 blocks from the Metro station. Visit shannonsdeli.net and shannonsirishpub.info.
The TV tide is turning, and millions of Americans are tuning to Salem News Channel. For breaking news, common sense analysis, and the conservative voices leading the conversation, SNC delivers the stories that matter most. Watch Scott Jennings, Larry Elder, Mike Gallagher, and many others tackling the issues facing our nation. Stream free on Pluto TV, Samsung TV, the Roku channel, and more. Salem News Channel, the news you want, the perspective you trust.
This hourly segment is brought to you by Goldilocks, offering 24/7 security solutions for homes and businesses. Call them today at 708-889-5600.
Team Hochberg Traffic Center Time, a service of Capital One. Earn unlimited double miles on every purchase with the Capital One Venture X business card. Big purchasing power means you can spend more and earn more. Capital One Venture X business card. What's in your wallet? See CapitalOne.com for details. Kennedy outbound Montrose to Sayre with delays. Stop and slow traffic on the Stevenson inbound between Ashland and the Dan Ryan. Stop and go traffic on I-65 Northwest Indiana, northbound right at 73rd. And accidents in Lombard, Wilson and Elizabeth, and in Addison, Rolling, and Lake. Chicago's Morning Answer continues next. Now your forecast in the Air Right Heating and Cooling Weather Center. Humid with a downpour scheduled for late in the morning, followed by a heavy thunderstorm later in the afternoon, and a high of 84.
Now, from The Signature, a division of Esquire Bank Studios.
Top of the morning, Dan Proft here. A lot of matters of dollars and cents to discuss. I want to start with data centers. Story out of the Dakotas. Ellendale is the town. Pre-data center, Ellendale Mayor Don Flaherty told local reporter the town collected about $400,000. Oh, this is actually, I think it was in San Francisco Chronicle, so not a local reporter. Ellendale Mayor Don Flaherty told the reporter the town collected about $400,000 in annual sales tax revenue. In just the first 7 months of 2026, it reaped $3.5 million. Flaherty estimated Ellendale's taxable property value will skyrocket from $3.5 million to $35 million with the data center location there. Ellendale can now afford to repave the streets, renovate its senior center, finance a new public safety complex, establish walking trails, and refurbish its historic opera house. The superintendent of the public school there told the reporter that Applied Digital grants will allow the district to buy new computers, purchase an ice machine for the teacher's lounge. That's important for their cocktail hour. And finance a playground renovation. We were a dying little town, and we're not anymore. Now, this is not to say that anything that brings local revenue is a putative good. We know this is how you sell all sorts of terrible ideas too, like video poker halls every other storefront and marijuana dispensaries and houses of additional kinds of ill repute. But that's not what data centers are doing. And a lot of the arguments as to the general opposition to them, are coming from places of general ignorance about their sort of how resource intensive they are versus what they return and other such matters that, I can see the point, should be matters of local concern. I mean, if San Francisco doesn't want a data center, okay, Ellendale does, and the AI revolution is coming. I mean, not coming, it's here. These things are going to happen, and so I understand every suburb just wants, upscale downtown condo complexes built, but there are economic realities too. For more on this and other matters, we're pleased to be joined by our friend Jim Perry. He is the founder and CIO of Perry International Capital Partners. And our conversation with Jim Perry is brought to you by Home State Bank, new sponsor. Consider Home State Bank as an impartial trustee to your estate and spare your family from conflict and disagreements. Talk to a Home State Bank trust officer today at 815-459-2000. Again, Home State Bank, the number 815-459-2000. Jim Perry, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Good morning, Dan. Thank you.
So, the sort of the growing understanding of data centers, even amid some genuine NIMBY issues, which I understand, and maybe some contrived campaigns to inhibit the deployment of data centers and the progress of AI in this country.
Yes, sir. I mean, I think that's right. It's another example, I suppose, Dan, that, there's a narrative out there, right? And there's a truth. So I think the truth is that these data centers generally are perceived as good for local economies, but there are always people who will say, you cannot ruin my way of life, and therefore you must pay me. So you have to just kind of ignore that stuff. But to your point about the sort of, generational industrial revolutionary build out, we're in the middle of it, and it's still going. So most people should be pleased about it rather than complaining about it, I think.
Well, right. And by the way, Elon Musk is proposing to build the biggest building in the world, 100 million square feet. Tesla and SpaceX, their TerraFab semiconductor mega factory in Grimes County, Texas, just outside Houston, with a first phase price tag of $17 billion. Gosh, maybe in some places in central and southern Illinois, they'd like a development like that, the job creation and other benefits that it would throw off in towns that, deindustrialize and died off or are dying off.
Yeah, that's right. It's you hear about these things all the time. I read something this morning early that the guy that runs BlackRock, Larry Fink, he is talking about a once-in-a-generation opportunity to invest in the American worker, right? So they have a joint venture, BlackRock and Microsoft, to build data centers in this sort of AI infrastructure project. And they signed an agreement with the National Association of Building Trades Union. which has got something like 3 million members. And these guys are going to go into partnership with them and make sure that there's enough construction workers for all these data centers. And, well, gee, what a good idea to put it sort of, somewhere near Chicago and get some people back to work. But you don't hear that from the guys that run the city.
No, you certainly don't. Something else that we're hearing, though, a lot in amid this, this example of free enterprise at its most innovative and disruptive, but that's how innovation is generated, through disruption. But on the other side, we're hearing calls for central planning, and the calls are growing louder because the people making them are getting more and more successful politically. So it's kind of an issue. And the stuff that's happening in New York, which I guess still technically is the world's financial capital, right? Is increasingly concerning. There are efforts that are essentially sponsored by the city government to set up tenant associations to initiate rent strikes for the purpose of, well, certainly living rent-free and ultimately perhaps seizing the property of private property owners. This is a woman named Tracy Rosenthal, who is the author of a book called Abolish Rent. Fairly straightforward, talking about rent strikes and living rent-free and providing a real-world example, which is always helpful.
We make this rent payment effectively at the barrel of a gun because we know that if we don't make this payment, our landlords can call on agents of state violence and who can use physical force to throw us outdoors. Living on rent strike, right? Like getting to experience having your housing without having to pay for it is one of those liberatory vision of home. Our movement has a division of labor that includes lawyers. It doesn't privilege lawyers or put them on a pedestal, right? It recognizes that being able to stall in the legal system is one of the most important tactics that our lawyers can offer to our movement. And to call it a housing crisis specifically obfuscates the power relationship between landlords and tenants, right? And that power relationship is inherently one of exploitation and domination, right? Like landlords effectively have the power to exploit us, to charge us rent. And they have the sort of they hoard the places where we can live and then charge us to access them. Both the tenants who got the rent increases and the tenants who didn't, but sort of recognized that process would be coming for them soon, all collectively decided to withhold their rent. And that, after a period of 8 months, that economic sanction, in combined with forms of social, more direct social sanction, like camping out on the landlord's lawn multiple times and shaming him in front of his community and neighbors, those two things brought the landlord to the negotiating table. Collective action that we take, right, in making our tenant associations or making a tenant union, whether that's sending a demand letter with fancy legalese so your landlord takes you seriously, or writing really bad Yelp reviews of his stupid flower business, or crashing his wedding or his kid's wedding, or going to his house.
And just to close the story, the landlord, this was in Bedford-Stuyvesant in New York, eventually lost the building per this rent strike to foreclosure in 2023, 3 years ago. U.S. Bank is now the owner, is suing the lovely young Miss Rosenthal and 4 other tenants for eviction, saying they've squatted on the premises. This has been, the cases are still before the courts 4 years later. And, again, this would be a one-off, or it'd be like a story about squatters' rights, that maybe something needs to be done at the state or city level. but this is being sponsored effectively by C. Weaver and the Mamdani administration in New York City. And it's a position that many mayors and increasing numbers of state legislators who are DSA members, city council members, are sympathetic to. And one wonders if, the proponents of free enterprise in corporate America are taking this activity as seriously as they should.
Yeah. I mean, we have a free market capitalist system here that is defined by laws. Those laws are agreed upon by the majority of the people in places where they live. And if some socialist knucklehead wants to come out and say, let's kill all the capitalists and we're here to destroy the white race and property has no value, I guess they have a pulpit for a while. But, you got to get these laws passed by the people that vote. And I guess some parts of New York City and San Francisco and Seattle and Minneapolis are thinking that laws don't matter anymore. But one of the reasons that this country continues to attract capital is because we do have laws. And if you revert back to some sort of lawless social contract that says humanity deserves better, well, then, go get a job. I don't really have a lot of time for people like this, him and her and Hassan Piker and Mamdani and Al-Sayed and Francesca Hong. I mean, these people are revolutionists that believe that, they want to destroy the country, and for some reason that's going to turn out better for everybody. So I think it's a moment in time going into the election where these guys and girls get a lot of press, but it doesn't have a lot of common sense to it. I just find it, I don't know.
Yeah.
Just barking at the wind.
Well, yeah, right. I mean, it's just a lot of press until they get a lot of power by being elected to the Senate or governor or Congress. That's the concern. I mean, it's a moment that perhaps people might want to, perk up and recognize. I mean, at least some people in that space, like Bill Ackman, are taking judicial notice of it because, of course, he got burned in New York by being asleep at the switch. So at least somebody's learning the lesson. I want to get your reaction to something else, too. It's a bit below the fold, but it's still a little bit worrisome. This U.S. intervention to prop up the yen, to prop up Japan's currency, a good intervention?
It's complicated, and it ties into global money supply and global debt and global trade. The Japanese yen has been in free fall really for years, and when that happens, the biggest problem you have to look at like the receivers and buyers of cheap currencies, but the exporters in Japan, which are the Sumitomos and the Mitsubishis and all these sort of companies, the Japanese stock market. It peaked in December 31st, 1989 at about 40,000. And it's just short of 70,000 now. So it's really, substantially higher than the bubble years back in the turn of the sort of 1980s. And the reason it's going up, and if you want to go buy the Japanese stock market, I guess you can, but, you got to buy it in yen. And if your yen is going down, you're not really making much money. So I think the Japanese have come to the realization that, the government buys all the government bonds. They've monetized all their debt. And Japan has the same problem as China does, and France, and, all kinds of other different places like that, England. Governments have social contracts that are eating up a substantial portion of the nation's GDP. I think the French government controls 70% of GDP in the entire country. You can't grow that way, right? So Europe is not growing. Japan is not growing. And all the money that people have there is leaving those places and coming here because the systems that they're trying to propagate but they don't work, right? So I think what Scott Bessent did in the yen trade is he did it in a way that the Japanese were able to buy yen, but through a kind of a sophisticated, financially engineered derivative, mostly in euros.
So they didn't sell. So they didn't sell T-bills.
They did not sell T-bills. In fact, the ownership of Treasury bonds and notes and bills at the Ministry of Finance and the Bank of Japan are essentially unchanged over the last 3.5 years, right? And they don't sell treasuries, and they won't sell treasuries because they've got so much cash flow in dollars that it helps them support the currency and the export economy. So I think it's kind of people are making more of it. I don't believe that the support of the yen by the U.S. Treasury Department using euros and 3-month derivative contracts is something that's going to upset the financial system right now. If investors are thinking it's a big deal, I would argue against that, saying, the Chinese have to sell treasuries because they don't have enough money in dollars to service the debt, and they don't want to be beholden to the U.S. government. They don't want to be held hostage by owning treasuries. So I think the Chinese continue to sell treasuries because they're out of money, and they don't want to use the dollar. And the Japanese are very tied to this country in terms of dollar trade, and frankly, most of the investments they're making in new factories is coming here. So I understand the whole philosophy of this sort of government intervention and state-sponsored capitalism and all that, and I think it's new, but this is a period of great disruption, and I think that it's not the first time this has happened. We've financed canals and railroads and electricity and power plants and all that sort of stuff. So I don't see it as a threat to the U.S. economy or to the U.S. investor. I find that you have to look at the data and the facts and kind of sometimes just shrug your shoulders at the narrative and say, you know what, Mr. Al-Sayed, if that's what you believe, go ahead and run for government. But the fact is it's going to be hard for a guy like that to win a national election. That's what I think.
Jim Perry, thank you so much. Founder, CIO, Perry International Capital Partners. Appreciate it. Our conversation with Jim Perry brought to you by Home State Bank. Consider Home State Bank as an impartial trustee to your estate and spare your family from conflict and disagreements. Talk to a Home State Bank trust officer today at 815-459-2000. Again, Home State Bank at 815-459-2000. Thanks so much, Jim. Appreciate it.
Have a good week, Dan. Thank you.
You too. You too. And Jim joined us on the alphawealthgroup.com answer line, of course. All right. Well, that's a wrap. I've tried to get in as much of these socialists as possible since we've got Democrat socialists, neo-Bolsheviks. Anyway, the Wisconsin primary tomorrow. See if Francesca Hong gets across the finish line despite her proximity to whiteness and disgust with Halloween and Thanksgiving and holidays and so forth. We'll be hearing a lot more from her in the months to come, it would seem. Tom Tiffany and Mike Rogers are positioning themselves interestingly as trying to be very sort of matter-of-fact and be a safe place for whatever is left of moderate Democrats in those two Midwestern states to land. We'll talk more about that tomorrow. Thanks for joining us in this edition of Chicago's Morning Answer. More wit and wisdom tomorrow. It's now at 9 o'clock on AM 560 WIND.
A different approach in the conflict with Iran. I'm Dave Anthony, Fox News. In the attempt to get the Strait of Hormuz shipping flowing fully again,
President Trump told Axios that instead of increasing military pressure on Iran, the administration is going to watch and wait and allow the economic pressure to mount. So this is what he said, in part, quote, "We are low-keying it. We are only semi-negotiating with them."
And Fox's Alex Hogan's at the White House.
Over the weekend, Iran released new demands saying that it wants the U.S. to lift its naval blockade, to unfreeze Iranian assets, and pay Iran for war damages.
When it comes to this Iran conflict,
I stand with President Trump. National security is most important.
Senator Darlene Graham, appointed to replace her late brother Lindsey, is running in a special primary tomorrow in South Carolina and has the Trump endorsement to replace him as the GOP nominee.